My manager lied and said I resigned, then announced I'd moved on. But I was mid-call with a client I landed, so I posted proof, tagged everyone, and when the client publicly demanded answers, the company panicked and tried to quietly rehire me. I was in the middle of a video call with a client I'd spent 3 months chasing, nurturing, and finally landing for our team in downtown Minneapolis. We were going over the final rollout when my screen froze. At first, I thought it was just our awful office Wi-Fi acting up again, but then the call kicked me out completely. When I tried to log back in, my work email rejected my password. Then it rejected the backup code. Then it said this account does not exist. I just sat there, staring at the screen like an idiot. 10 minutes earlier, I had submitted the last deliverables, timestamped, approved, and forwarded directly to my manager to keep her in the loop. 10 minutes, that's how fast everything went from completely normal to what the hell just happened. I checked my personal phone, and that's when I saw it. A company-wide email blast. Please join us in wishing my name well as she moves on to new opportunities. Effective immediately, she has resigned from her position. Resigned? I hadn't resigned from anything. I hadn't even taken a sick day in 6 months. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd puke. The email was signed by my manager, Karen, who, by the way, had hugged me at the holiday party last weekend and said she was so grateful for my loyalty. Yeah, loyalty. Apparently a one-way street. I called her work phone, straight to voicemail, called her cell, straight to voicemail again. Then I called HR. The intern picked up, clearly surprised, and put me on hold. After 5 minutes of silence, the call disconnected. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. Someone wasn't just trying to push me out. Someone wanted me gone fast and wanted the story to be that I had walked away voluntarily, which meant I couldn't let them control the narrative. So I played along. I opened LinkedIn, attached the timestamp deliverables from that morning, and wrote a calm, professional post explaining that I had apparently resigned without my knowledge. Then tagged the client, the company, the executive director, and Karen herself. I didn't rant, I didn't accuse, I just stated the facts. That's how you make people pay attention. You don't scream, you let the truth do the screaming for you. 20 minutes later, the client commented publicly, "This is the first we're hearing of this. Why were we told you were unavailable? Please explain." And they tagged the company. 2 minutes after that, they DM'd me privately asking for the real story. I told them I didn't have it yet, but that I was about to find out. Then everything exploded. I got a text from a coworker. "WTF did you do? Karen is freaking out. She's saying you blindsided her." Blindsided her? She deleted my access, issued a fake resignation on my behalf, and burned a bridge with our biggest account, and somehow I was the one being dramatic. Another text came through from someone else. "There's a closed-door meeting happening. Execs are pissed. Something about miscommunication and containment." Containment. Like I was a gas leak. I sat there in my tiny apartment kitchen, still dressed in the blazer I wore for the client call, staring at my dead work laptop and the chaos unfolding on my phone, and realized something I probably should have understood a long time ago. Karen didn't make mistakes. She made moves, and this one was planned. The question was why and what she thought I was going to do about it. The answer to that last part showed up in my email about 30 minutes later, sent from what looked like Karen's personal account. Only one line. "Please don't escalate this any further. We can fix it internally." And that's when I knew she was hiding something big, something she couldn't afford for anyone else to see. Before everything blew up, I actually liked my job. I know that sounds pathetic considering how it all ended, but it's true. I started at Westhaven Strategies 2 years ago, right after moving to Minneapolis from Duluth. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even well paid. But it was my first real step out of the endless temp job grind I'd been stuck in since college. I finally had a salary, health insurance, and the kind of role where people actually remembered my name. And then there was Karen. At first, she seemed like the kind of manager every early career person dreams of. Sharp, confident, well-connected, always talking about developing her team and promoting from within. She took me out for coffee during my first week, walked me through her leadership philosophy, and even sent me a list of free online trainings she thought could accelerate my growth. Looking back now, it feels creepy. Over-curated, like she was grooming me for a role she hadn't told me about yet. Or maybe grooming me for something else entirely. But at the time, I bought into it. I worked late. I volunteered for the projects no one wanted. I handled the messy clients because I was good at smoothing them over. I covered for coworkers who were drowning. I even covered for Karen when she forgot deadlines or mixed up deliverables, which honestly happened more than people knew. She had a reputation for being brilliant, but the brilliance was mostly smoke and mirrors, and I spent a lot of nights putting fires out behind her. Still, she gave me praise in meetings, recommended me for internal awards, and even hinted once that she saw me taking over a senior role eventually. I clung to that hope like every tired, overworked, underpaid millennial who just wants a stable life. The turning point wasn't obvious at first. It was small. 3 months before the whole fake resignation disaster, I landed a mid-sized account with a regional retailer. It wasn't huge, but it was steady revenue. Karen congratulated me, but her smile was weird, tight around the edges, like she was trying too hard to look happy. After that, she started nitpicking my work. She forgot to invite me to 2 client calls. She reassigned one of my accounts without explanation. She stopped answering my messages unless someone else was copied. It felt like being freeze-dried, like someone was slowly removing all the air around me without ever touching me. Then I landed the big client, the one that changed everything. The one that brought in enough projected revenue to bump our team's entire quarterly forecast. Karen was ecstatic, too ecstatic. She started showing up to my calls. She started speaking for me in meetings. She even volunteered to finalize my deliverables before they went out. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought she wanted to share credit. Now I know she wanted to take it. Around that same time, my coworkers started acting weird. Conversations would stop when I walked into the break room. A junior analyst asked me, quietly, if I was okay with everything going on. When I asked what she meant, she got nervous and told me to just be careful. I should have pressed harder. I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. I brushed it off. I didn't want to be the paranoid employee who thinks everyone's out to get them, but someone was out to get me, and they weren't subtle anymore. 2 weeks before I was resigned, Karen asked me in the hallway if I ever thought about other opportunities in the industry. I laughed it off. She didn't. She just gave me that same tight smile and said, "Sometimes doors close for a reason." I swear if I had paid closer attention, if I had taken that line seriously, I might have seen what was coming. But she counted on that. She counted on me trusting her. And that trust was the weapon she used to gut me clean. The 2 weeks leading up to my resignation were a blur of small, unsettling things that didn't feel like much individually, but together painted a picture I was too busy or too naive to see. It started with access issues. I'd log into our internal dashboard and notice permissions quietly changing. A folder I used every day would suddenly be locked. A report I built would be marked read only. I asked it about it once and they said the request came from management. When I pressed, they got awkward and said, "Just talk to your manager." I didn't because I knew exactly how that conversation would go. Karen acting confused, apologizing, saying she'd look into it, and then nothing would change. Then there were the meetings. Meetings I had been running for months were suddenly led by Karen. She spoke over me so much that at one point, a client asked if I was new to the team. Some days she'd CC me on emails about my own projects like I was an afterthought. Other days she'd forget to include me at all and send me a Slack afterwards saying, "Oops, my bad." It wasn't her being disorganized. It was her pushing me to the far edges of my own job, slowly, quietly, strategically. Around that time, the client I eventually tagged on LinkedIn started noticing things. They'd email me directly with questions, and then, hours later, Karen would respond instead, saying she was taking over client-facing communications to streamline workflows. The client didn't push back. They didn't know something was wrong. But every time it happened, my chest tightened. I was becoming invisible. And the worst part? No one said anything. Coworkers who used to eat lunch with me suddenly got too busy. People stopped inviting me to the group chat hangouts. A few avoided eye contact in hallways, and I could tell they knew something I didn't know. Or maybe they knew exactly what Karen was planning and didn't want to get caught in the fallout. I finally confronted her one Friday afternoon after she accidentally deleted one of my files from the shared drive. I walked into her office, shut the door, and said, "If there's something I need to know, tell me." She looked up from her laptop with this weird, blank expression, like she hadn't expected me to push back. Then she gave me that slow head tilt she did when she was about to lie. "What would make you think that?" she asked. I told her about the permissions, the meetings, the clients, the disappearing files. The fact that she was rewriting entire sections of work I submitted, work she later claimed as her own in a team presentation. She just smiled and said, "You're overthinking everything. You've been stressed. Burnout can make things seem worse than they are." Burnout. She used that word like she was diagnosing me. And then, as if she needed to twist the knife, she said, "If you need to step back for a while, we can discuss options. Even a transition if that's what you want." I remember sitting there, wondering why she kept using that word, transition, like I was already halfway out the door. I didn't know then that she was setting the narrative, laying the foundation, creating a trail she could point to later. That weekend, I noticed she'd removed my access to the quarterly forecast spreadsheet, the one that showed projected revenue from the big client. That was the moment something in me snapped awake. I wasn't paranoid. Something was happening. Then, 3 days later, she scheduled a quick sync with me for Monday morning. No agenda, no context, just let's touch base before the week gets busy. But Monday morning arrived, and the meeting disappeared from my calendar. No cancellation, no explanation, it was just gone. 12 hours later, my email was deactivated mid-call. Whatever Karen had been planning, whatever she'd been building behind my back, it was complete, and she was ready to execute. The morning after my resignation, my phone blew up nonstop. Coworkers, ex-coworkers, people I barely talked to, all suddenly desperate to know what was happening. Most were pretending to check in, but a few were honest enough to admit the office was melting down. But the message that changed everything came from Jenna, a junior analyst who'd only been on the team 6 months. She wasn't close to me, she didn't owe me anything. That's probably why she told the truth. Her text popped up at 9:12 am. "I need to tell you something, it wasn't an accident. Karen's been planning this for weeks. Please don't say it came from me." My heart stopped. I called her immediately, and to my surprise, she answered. She whispered like she was in a bathroom stall. "Karen told the execs you were dealing with issues," she said. "What issues?" There was a long pause. Then, "She said you were emotionally unstable, that your workload was too much, that you were overwhelmed and considering stepping away. She said she was managing you through a transition." I swear, I felt my pulse in my teeth. "She told HR you verbally mentioned leaving," Jenna continued. "Twice. She wrote it in an internal memo so it would be documented." A memo. A fake paper trail. I sat down on the floor because my legs literally wouldn't hold me. "Why would she do that?" I whispered. Jenna exhaled shakily. "Because of the client, she wanted full ownership. Everyone knows that account is a golden ticket. She's applying for a director role next quarter. She needed the win." And there it was. Karen hadn't just stolen credit for the project. She had staged my exit so she could claim the entire contract and present it as her achievement just in time for her promotion review. "She submitted a performance report last week," Jenna added. "Said your output was declining and she had been supporting you with major deliverables. She made it sound like she'd been doing your job for you. My deliverables, my calls, my groundwork. Everything I built while she hovered like a vulture." Then Jenna dropped the part that made my skin go cold. "On Friday," she whispered, "Karen told the leadership team you confirmed you were leaving, but wanted it handled quietly. She said you asked her to announce it on Monday. That's why they approved the email." I couldn't breathe. Karen had forged my resignation, verbally, administratively, and socially. And because she'd set the narrative, HR believed her. Leadership believed her. Everyone believed her. And the timing wasn't random. The deliverables I sent Monday morning, she probably forwarded them as her final contributions before my departure. I asked the only question that mattered. "Why fire me instead of just sidelining me?" Jenna hesitated. Then she told me the real twist, the one that made everything else click into place. "The client asked for you specifically," she said. "They told the exec team last month that you were the reason they signed. They said they wouldn't have moved forward without you." My stomach twisted. Karen hadn't just wanted me gone. She needed me gone. Because if I stayed, the client would keep insisting I lead the project, and that meant the revenue wouldn't be credited solely to her. She couldn't risk leadership seeing that. So she eliminated the variable. She eliminated me. I felt something inside me go still. Quiet, I scold. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't miscommunication. This was deliberate professional murder. And if I hadn't made that LinkedIn post, it would have worked. As Jenna was about to hang up, she whispered one last thing. There's more you don't know. Karen wasn't working alone. Before I could ask who she meant, someone walked into the bathroom and she hung up. I sat there shaking, every nerve on fire. Karen orchestrated it, but someone else helped her pull the trigger. After Jenna's call, something in me shifted. The shaking stopped. The panic drained out. What replaced it wasn't rage, at least not the screaming kind. It was colder, sharper. Like everything inside me finally clicked into a single, clear line of thought. If Karen built a fake narrative, I would build a real one. And I'd build it loud enough that nobody could bury it. First step, documentation. If Karen wanted to create a paper trail, I'd create a damn highway. I spent the next 6 hours gathering every shred of evidence I had. Timestamps, email chains, Slack messages where she admitted accidentally removing me, screenshots of her speaking over me in client channels, files I'd created with metadata showing my ownership, phone logs, calendar invites she deleted, even the internal dashboard logs that showed when my permissions were pulled. Every little crack became a brick in the wall I was building. Next, witnesses. I didn't need everyone, I just needed enough. I reached out quietly to the coworkers I trusted. Not many, maybe 4. People who weren't loyal to Karen or scared to death of her. People who knew I wasn't unstable or burnt out or whispering about transitioning. One by one, they confirmed versions of the same thing. They noticed Karen taking over my work. They heard her claim I was checked out. They saw her present my deliverables as her own. They overheard her saying she was helping me move on gracefully. One coworker, Mateo, even had a Slack message from Karen saying, if she leaves before quarter end, recalibrate the forecast under my column. I almost cried when I saw it. Not out of sadness, out of pure icy validation. Next, motive. Karen wanted the client credit for her director promotion. But I needed proof. That came from a surprising place, an email I had forgotten about. 2 weeks earlier, she forwarded me a document for review. She must have sent it by accident because it was her draft pitch for the director role. Right there, under Key Impact Achievements, she listed the big client as something she secured and developed. Secured, developed. She was already rewriting history before she even pushed me out. And then there was the other mystery. The person helping her. I didn't know who yet, but I didn't need their name to dismantle the whole operation. Once one domino fell, the rest would follow. My retaliation plan came together in 3 layers. Layer 1, exposure. I drafted a clear, factual timeline using the evidence. No speculation, no emotion, just receipts. I prepared a packet for HR, the executive board, and importantly, the client. Layer 2, legal pressure. I contacted an employment attorney who specialized in wrongful termination and reputational damage. When I told him what happened, he didn't even let me finish before saying, "This is retaliation, misrepresentation, and bad faith termination. You have leverage." He drafted a preservation of records letter that would scare the hell out of any corporate office trying to hide something. Layer 3, leverage through truth. I didn't need revenge that was flashy. I needed revenge that was undeniable. The client already suspected something was off, so I scheduled a call with their director of operations from my personal number. I told them I had documents showing I hadn't resigned and that they had been misled about who actually secured their contract. The director said, "Send everything. If what you're saying is true, we've been lied to." And then, quietly, they added, "This isn't the first odd interaction we've had with Karen." That sentence became fuel. By midnight, my plan was fully formed. All I needed was one more piece, the missing link Jenna hinted at, the person helping Karen. And I got my answer the next morning, in the most unexpected way. A blocked number called me at 7:14 am, a man's voice whispered, "You don't know me, but you need to understand, Karen didn't do this alone. Someone in leadership wanted you gone." That was the second twist forming in the dark, and I realized my enemy wasn't just Karen. Someone higher up had been watching me, waiting, using her as the blade. The blocked call shook me more than I wanted to admit. The voice wasn't distorted or disguised. It was calm, almost careful, like he was choosing each word with the precision of someone who'd already crossed a line just by dialing my number. "You're in danger of being the scapegoat," he said. "Karen was the executor, but she wasn't the architect." I stepped into my living room, away from the thin apartment walls. "Who are you?" "I can't say," he replied. "But I work in the building. I've seen the emails." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What emails?" A beat of silence. Then, "The ones between Karen and the VP of Operations." My chest tightened. We only had one VP of Ops, Greg Patton. A man who barely acknowledged my existence beyond nodding in hallways. A man I'd maybe spoken to 4 times in 2 years. A man I had absolutely no beef with, or so I thought. "What does he have to do with this?" I asked. The man on the phone exhaled. "You don't understand. He wasn't just aware. He initiated the process. Karen executed it to protect her own promotion, but Greg, he had a different motive." My voice dropped. "Why would a VP care about pushing me out?" "You were copied on an email you weren't meant to see," he said. "Months ago." My brain raced. I sifted through memories, attachments, random forwarded threads. I couldn't figure out what he meant. "I don't know what email you're talking about." "You wouldn't. The thread continued without you after that, but the damage was already done." I gripped the edge of the counter. "Tell me." He paused, like he was weighing whether saying it out loud crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Finally, he said, "You saw the budget error." My mind snapped to attention. 3 months earlier, I'd been reviewing department allocations for a quarterly presentation. On page 7 of a spreadsheet, I found a weird, duplicated deduction under consultant fees. It was off by about $18,500. I flagged it in a comment and sent it back to the finance team. They thanked me, corrected it, moved on. It didn't feel like a big deal until now. "You weren't supposed to catch that," the caller said quietly. "It exposed a pattern." That line item was part of a recurring adjustment. The word recurring hit like a punch. My stomach dropped. "Are you saying it was intentional?" The caller didn't answer directly. "I'm saying Greg has been moving funds between departments in ways that don't show up in final audits. And when you flagged that number, you put him on notice. You saw something he didn't want any non-manager seeing." He continued, voice lower than before. "Karen told him you were ambitious, detail-oriented, a potential risk. She thought throwing you under the bus would earn her his support for her promotion. He thought removing you would keep his books clean." I stepped back, pressing my hand to my mouth. This wasn't just office politics. This was cover-up. This was manipulation at a level I wasn't even supposed to be aware of. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because they're planning to blame you if the client pulls out," he said. "They're drafting a statement already. Something about your instability disrupting the workflow." My stomach turned. "They want you to take the fall for a decision you didn't make, so Greg's hands stay clean and Karen still gets her shot." I'd expected Karen to betray me. I didn't expect the VP to weaponize her ambition to hide his own misconduct. The caller added one final blow. "They didn't expect you to fight back. They didn't expect the client to get involved. And they definitely didn't expect your LinkedIn post to go viral." "Viral? What do you mean viral?" "Check your notifications," he said, "and prepare yourself. Everything's about to break open." The line went dead. I opened LinkedIn. My post had 146,000 views, hundreds of comments, dozens of industry leaders demanding answers, and one comment, pinned by LinkedIn automatically because it was blowing up, from Greg Patton himself. It read, "This matter is being handled internally. We advise the public not to draw conclusions from incomplete information." And that was the moment I realized he wasn't denying anything. He was trying to contain it. And containment only happens when there's something truly rotten underneath. When everything blew open on LinkedIn, the company went into full panic mode. But Greg wasn't panicking. He was doing something worse. He was calculating. And that's how I finally learned the real reason behind all of it. Not the budget mistake, not Karen's promotion, not even the client account. Those were surface symptoms. The rot underneath was far darker. It started with an email string the anonymous caller eventually forwarded to me from a burner account. No greeting, no explanation, just a PDF of internal messages between Karen and Greg over the past 8 weeks. I read every line, and with each one my skin crawled. Greg's motive wasn't fear I'd caught a one-off error. It was fear I'd catch all of them. That $18,500 discrepancy wasn't some accident he smoothed over. It was part of a long-term scheme where Greg had been siphoning budget allocations from various teams, moving money around to inflate his department's performance metrics, and hide losses from an expansion project that had tanked years earlier. He had been cooking the books, subtly, carefully, consistently, for 3 years. The reason no auditor caught it? He shuffled the losses around in tiny increments so they never tripped a single compliance flag. Each department saw something minor, fixable, forgettable. But I had tagged the wrong number at the wrong time. And it made him realize something. I wasn't the type who overlooked details. I wasn't the type who let numbers slide. I wasn't the type who could be quietly manipulated. I was the type who could expose him. And that made me a threat. Reading their messages felt like standing outside my own open grave. Greg wrote, "She's too sharp. If she stays, she'll see patterns." Karen replied, "I'll take care of it. She's already stretched thin." Easy to frame it as burnout. Frame me as unstable, then Greg, "Make sure she's out before Q1 audits. Do not leave loose ends." Loose ends. That's what I was to him, not a worker, not a person. Not someone whose life he was about to destroy, just a loose end. Another message, 3 weeks later, "We need her off the client account ASAP. If she gets close to the budget reports, we're exposed." Then Karen. "She trusts me completely. When she resigns, it'll look clean." I remember gripping my phone so tight my hand went numb. They didn't think I was burnt out. They didn't think I was overworked. They didn't think I wanted to leave. They decided my future for me because I was efficient, because I caught details, because I wasn't corrupt. And they were. But the message that twisted something deep and cold in my chest was the one Karen sent the day before she disabled my account. She uploaded the final deliverables. "If we move now, I can take credit. That will secure the director recommendation." Greg answered, "Good, and once she's out, I want a narrative in place. Draft something about emotional instability. If this goes bad, she's the scapegoat." Scapegoat. He wrote that casually, like a grocery list item. And then one more line, "People like her don't fight back. People like me, quiet, hardworking, trusting." He thought people like me would fold, disappear, let the story swallow me whole. He didn't plan for the client seeing my post. He didn't plan for it going viral. He didn't plan for someone inside the company to grow a conscience. But the worst part, the part that still makes my stomach clench, was realizing this. They would have ruined my reputation, my career, my financial stability, and walked away without a second thought. Not out of personal hatred. Not because I wronged them. But simply because I noticed something I wasn't supposed to. Because I existed in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because eliminating me was easier than modifying their corruption. And once I understood that, my revenge stopped being about justice. It became about survival. Once I saw those emails, once I understood exactly what Greg and Karen were willing to do to protect themselves, I stopped caring about being polite or professional or handling things internally. They wanted me erased. They wanted a scapegoat. So I became a spotlight. A bright, blinding one. My revenge didn't start with a dramatic confrontation. It started with a simple email sent at 7:42 a.m. to 4 groups at once. The executive board, HR's compliance officer, the client's director of operations, and a law firm CC'd at the bottom. The subject line was clean. Documentation regarding forced resignation and misconduct. The body was cleaner. A timeline, evidence, screenshots, attachments, metadata, the burner email PDF, the Slack messages, every single thing Karen and Greg thought I would never see. No commentary, no emotion, just receipts. At the bottom, I added one line. "I am prepared to move forward with legal action if this is not resolved transparently." Then I hit send. I didn't expect what happened next to unfold so fast. By 8:30 a.m., the internal grapevine was on fire. Someone leaked that HR had called an emergency compliance meeting. By 9:15, Karen's calendar status flipped from busy to out of office. By 9:50, Greg's name disappeared from the org chart on the internal site. They weren't sick. They weren't home for the day. They were suspended pending investigation. My phone lit up with messages from coworkers who had ignored me for weeks, now suddenly, horrified and so sorry and shocked. I didn't respond. I didn't need validation from people who stayed silent while I was being gutted. The real hit came at 10:12 a.m. when the client publicly commented under my original LinkedIn post again. We have reviewed the materials provided. We will not continue our contract with Westhaven Strategies until accountability has been fully addressed. That alone cost the company over $4 million in projected revenue. The second blow landed harder. A LinkedIn article, published by the client, detailing their commitment to ethical partnerships and transparency, including a direct reference to fraudulent internal practices, they had been alerted to. They didn't name Karen, they didn't name Greg, but everyone knew. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, calm, focused, the kind of quiet you get when you stop waiting for anyone else to save you. By noon, HR emailed me requesting a formal interview with their legal department and compliance audit team. My lawyer responded on my behalf. My client will participate. Please prepare all internal communications relating to her performance, resignation, and account access. And just like that, the company realized I wasn't letting this go. The audit opened a full investigation into financial misconduct, something they were legally required to report once it hit certain thresholds. And Greg's recurring adjustments, they met that threshold fast. 3 weeks later, Greg was terminated for cause. 2 days after that, Karen resigned to pursue personal opportunities. But that wasn't the end. The board quietly reached out to me with a settlement agreement, money for wrongful termination, reputational damage, and whistleblower exposure. The amount made my hands shake when I saw it. I countered. They accepted. And even then, it wasn't the money that felt like closure. It was what happened after. Westhaven posted a job listing for a new director of client strategy, the role Karen had clawed, schemed, and sabotaged for. Under preferred qualifications, one bullet stood out: commitment to ethical leadership and transparent collaboration. I didn't apply, not because I couldn't, because I didn't need them anymore. My story had already circulated across the industry. Recruiters started contacting me, not the other way around. One role in Chicago even said, "We admire your integrity." Integrity. The thing Karen and Greg thought they could crush. The thing they never understood was my biggest weapon. In the end, I didn't just get justice. I got my career back, my life back, my name back. And as I signed the final settlement papers, I couldn't stop thinking one simple thought. People like me don't fight back. They were wrong. People like me fight back harder than they ever see coming.